All right. It says we're live. I know that they don't have us up yet currently, but if you are watching the replay, hi, welcome. Thank you for watching. As if you watch a lot of my replays, you know that I think the replays are not nearly as entertaining as actually being able to be there in real time. So I appreciate you if you decide to show up for the Walmart version of the live. That's nice of you.
Not the Dollar Tree live.
Right, exactly.
Dollar Tree has some nice stuff.
I know. Listen, my sister got me these.
Oh, I got the top one actually. Is one that I have.
They're going in my Black Queen blog. I'm like very into them, but there's
they get good school supplies too. Let's be honest.
Yeah, they're not $1 anymore though, which is
sad.
The worst.
Most of our decorations behind us are from the Dollar Tree.
Right, like they have cute stuff. This is from the Dollar Tree last year. It's fine. All right, this is not a Dollar Tree live, but we
have one of those. It's not in this room. We were like, wait a fucking second.
We can have one of those lives.
Oh,
they actually get a lot of views.
Yeah,
you're a pumpkin.
I know, Vina. You were talking about how there's like drama in the online Dollar Tree shopping community.
Yeah, like it's really serious over there. I started watching like some of the videos, like just for fun earlier this year, and I'm like, wow, there's affairs and stuff going on over there.
Oh my word!
Oh geez,
I don't think we have affairs for like the book community, whereas like they met on the bookish space. I don't think that's happened yet, or at least we don't know about it. Because I'm sure we would all know about it if we did. But anyways, moving right along. We are Mean Girls in the book community, and this is not a gender specific thing, although certainly I think we're kind of talking about white women in the book community, but whatever. So it's not gender specific to Mean Girls, but it's just the mean girl behavior. And actually Jesse inspired this because we have so much drama behind the scenes. Jesse made a couple of videos actually that particularly inspired this live, which is why I particularly wanted to have them in it. They made a video about Selena Gomez and Mean Girls in books and kind of our obsession with Mean Girl tropes and the stuff with Selena Gomez and Hailey Bieber when that was taking the internet by storm. And then they also made a video, which I will again reference later, about a Bookstagram drama where a teen made a questionable post. Had a questionable take, as teens tend to do, and Bookstagram came for them with a vengeance. Wow. And I actually have both of those videos linked in the description if you all have not already seen them, but it was kind of a combination of those two, but there I was like, this would make a great live. So here we are now. So I would like for you all to introduce yourselves first, but that's what we're going to talk about. And we're going to kind of talk about a couple different things, but a lot of the main emphasis of the conversation will probably be how much is calling people out for problematic behavior labeled as bullying and mean girl behavior. And we just want to talk about books. Why are you being so mean? And or how much is people making, their bookish platform their life. So if you say that they're wrong about anything or you don't like their favorite book, then you're directing them directly, you're attacking them directly as a person, and they kind of disproportionately react to that. So kind of a mishmash of those things, but I'm really excited for it. So let's start with Robin and work our way round to Vina and then back to me. And you can tell them kind of what books you read and what you do on your channel.
I'm Robin. I'm Paperbacks and Planners here on YouTube and over on Instagram. I read primarily romance, although I have read fantasy and thrillers this month. And I read Their Vicious Games because of Jesse, and it was fantastic.
Hello. Our name is Jessie. We go by they, y'all pronouns. So if you hear us say we are talking about me, myself, and I. So our channel is Jessie on YouTube, but we talk mainly about thrillers, horror, fantasy. It's like I'm kind of a if the book sounds good, we will read the book kind of thing. But we feel like for the most part, the last couple of years, it's been thrillers and popular books that are new by Black authors. That has been the focus. Oh, and we run a non-binary book club. And that's it.
Hey, I'm Vina. My channel is Miss WOC Reader, and I kind of read across age categories. Everything from board books to adult books. I read different genres, but I mostly stick to like fantasy, contemporary, and romance. And I mainly read books by BIPOC authors, especially Black authors.
Yes. And they all, well, not Robin so much, whatever, Robin. They all post really interesting discussion videos. Robin keeps claiming that she has recorded some, and I'm waiting for her to show up, and I'm still here.
Me with my father. He never came.
So there's that. Chat, if you could just, if someone new comes in or whatever and they are misgendering anyone, if you could please correct them, and if they insist on continuing, please point them out so that they can be blocked, because we don't do that. It's a safe place if you are invited on a live or if you're in the chat of the live. So sometimes we're deep in a discussion and we're not really reading the chat. So if you could go out of your way to either correct them, or if again they refuse to if they're doing it on purpose, then if you can point them out so they would be blocked, that would be great. Thanks so much. So let's get right into it. So obviously, when I originally had planned on doing this live show, I didn't realize that I would be in the middle of the genocide with Palestine, with Israel, the Israeli government, and then people confusing anti-Semitism with Zionism, with we don't support genocide. And you have kind of the whole world looking at this, but more specifically in the book community, you have a lot of people unhappy. I think that anybody should have to know their opinion on it, or that they're just here for the books, or this is book Twitter or what have you, and why do you want us posting about it? We shouldn't have to post about it, and things like that. So kind of with a mind to that, but not about that specifically. How much do you think that getting labeled as mean or a bully or overreacting maybe is people calling other creators out for problematic behavior? Specifically, they had a poor take, or they were told, hey, there's something wrong with this, and they doubled down on it, right? How much of that do you think gets labeled that? Because I think that a lot of it does. I think that there is a whole subset of BookTube specifically that really, really dislikes anyone who talks about what they should be doing differently, or points out any issues with their content or with their favorite authors or their books. So I'm curious just how much of it you think might be that.
I think a lot. I think a lot. I know people say, and I do see like where sometimes people will, there are like one or two people out there who might be like trying to just get you, but I feel like a lot of it is just like people don't want to be called out or they don't want to be corrected when they're wrong. And I understand like wanting to be right, but sometimes you just need to take it and realize that you're wrong and like apologize or correct yourself.
Especially because a lot of the times it gets brought up because the person that was called out privately and then goes and makes it public. And it's like, that was an unnecessary step. Like you could have taken the information, changed whatever it was, and this wouldn't have been a problem. But you came online and were like, so-and-so said this, and everyone keeps, and it's like, it was one person. that asked for something. It was
Right.
one singular human being.
Right.
Yeah.
And now
Also,
it's a big deal.
I find call-ins don't really work anymore because people are just like, whatever, I'm still going to do whatever, say what you want to say. But then they get mad when they get called out by a lot of people.
Right.
Absolutely. And like you said, I think when somebody does try to call in and it's ignored, then it turns into the bullying because it's like, well, now too many people are calling me out. And it's like, if you had just done it the
Right.
first time.
A lot of times it was a very simple fix and the person wasn't being mean to you, or like they like you. They thought that you were enough of their friend that they could point it out to you and maintain the relationship with you. Um, and you got too defensive and you overreacted. And now that bridge is burned when, they were being nice. They were helping you out as your friend. And now you've got, again, the whole public being like, what are you talking about? Like, words mean things.
Mhm.
And your friend said that to you privately. You could have fixed it,
Yeah.
nobody knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been in that situation where I had to call somebody out for something that they posted, and I didn't make a mean comment. I just made a public comment, and they were mad about the public comment, DM me about it in a very nasty way, and then just refused to outright listen. So then I was like, okay, I'm just going to let Book Twitter handle it. And they handled it, and they were very mad and mad for like months after about it.
Right.
Um,
What are your thoughts, Jesse? Since I know you don't like to talk over people, so, we'll let you all have a moment of silence before your turn.
We think that especially the folks who created their own drama by posting call-ins publicly, the reason that that happens is obviously because they are more upset about the mere idea of having to look at themselves in a mirror, to look at their behaviors and what they're saying and what it actually means and why. And so they automatically want to seek external validation that, like, okay, well, you actually are a good person. This is just a one. And so, like, that mere act of publicizing it is inherently questionable when it's a call, when it's you're being told that like you did something wrong. Um,
Mhm.
I think that we personally think that call-ins depend entirely on the person and where they're at in their journey, because very recently, we'll just use ourselves as an example. Very recently on Instagram, and I think, were we talking about this, Heather? Maybe not. Maybe it was another friend, but very recently we reposted a Instagram story. We shared it, a Instagram post. We shared it on our story, and it was the Star of David with, how do we make this? Jewish books in the shape of the. Does that make sense?
yeah.
So we were like, excellent, supporting Jewish literature, posted it. And then we had one person just send a bunch of question marks, which told us, though, even though it was very unhelpful, we were like, oh, okay, something's up. And then we looked, and one other person said, like, this is supporting genocide. And we were very like, okay, cool, like, I'll remove it, but didn't understand why. So we had to like go do our own, research and figure it out. But the point is, this is a situation where someone doesn't understand why they're being called in.
Mhm.
And like, the worst way to respond is then to post the call in and
Right.
try, you know what I mean? And so I
Mhm.
think that the only reason why I'm even able to do that we're in a position to do that, is because we've been doing this specific emotional work since, I think, 2012 is when we started the like, okay, work on your own ego, and like, conflict isn't abuse, and like, you don't need to respond inherently automatically with aggression, or
Right.
defensiveness rather.
Right.
But I think that if you look at the situation with a little girl on Instagram, on
Mhm.
Bookstagram, who was saying, yeah, like if your photos aren't professional, you just can't sit with us. Like you shouldn't be on Instagram. There were so many comments. People only as the situation kind of steamrolled and got out of hand. All of the comments at the start of it were very, very well put Collins.
Mhm.
She didn't have the emotional capacity, the history, the whatever, the groundwork to accept the call-in. So for us, going back to what Vina says, we feel that it's not that they're ineffective, it's that they are ineffective for people who inherently have issues with feeling, what's the word, like victimized.
Yeah. Or
That's
even just defensive, right? Because it is human nature to be defensive. It
exactly.
just is.
Like you need
Um,
training to work on that.
Right. We don't want anyone to think that we're the bad guy. We don't want anyone to tell us that we're wrong. It's the same reason why some people will get embarrassed if you tell them they have food in their teeth. They don't want you to tell them. Like they want you to not know this. They want it to not be true. But it's like, okay, but it's right there. So do you want me to help you out or not? And the answer is not. Like they're more embarrassed about you bringing it up than they are that you're seeing it or whatever.
I think
And
ego was a good word
like
too.
that's a
Mm,
I think in a lot of instances it is a maturity thing. Like you have to learn to get over that because that's your natural instinct. That's why so many people do get in hot water because
mhm,
they get called out and their immediate reaction is always defensiveness. And you have to put the pause on yourself and be like, "Hold on, just a second. Let me get past this very emotional response
mhm,
that is automatically, well, I didn't do anything wrong.
mhm,
And let me think about it for just a second," which a lot of times we don't give people grace to do, right? We want a response right away. We want you to admit that you were wrong, why you were wrong, all of this. And we don't give a lot of time for that. And I wish that we would because, um, you know, if you were unaware or at the point in the first place to make the mistake, to make the
mhm,
post or whatever, um, it's gonna take you a second to undo it because if you were already at the place where you knew not to do it, you wouldn't have posted it in the first place, right?
mhm,
Um, I know I have a friend, Izzy at Happy for Now. This was a couple of years ago. This was in 2020, like November or so. And I had been reading a book series that had a slur in the title that I was not aware was a slur. It was the G word. And I, was saying the titles and was talking about the books and was giving them 5 stars and all of this. And Izzy made a video and she was talking about a whole slew of other things, right? But and then in that video, she's like, "Hey, this is a slur. Y'all shouldn't be using it." And I watched the video and I was like, "Oh, well, that doesn't feel good." And then I was like, "Hey, yeah, let me know like the information. Let me know." And yeah, it was. And I had to, be like at the end of the year basically in my no one called me out. No one canceled me. No one did anything. She just said, "Hey, it's a slur, you shouldn't use it." And we weren't at a place where like we could DM each other or anything at that point. Um she said you shouldn't use it. And then I was like, "Hey, I loved these books and I can't recommend them anymore." Because the author talks about how some people don't like that word, so you cannot tell me that you didn't know. Like that's in your book.
And
Um,
that's the thing too, like what Bree pointed out in the chat, like sometimes it's hard to extend grace in certain situations. Like sometimes you get a feel that people know what they're talking about. Like
Yeah.
I
mhm,
stopped extending grace to the people who claim they
mhm.
don't know what Black romance is and that it doesn't include interracial romance because I'm
right,
like, y'all aren't writing whole paragraphs explaining on why you're including interracial romance in it if you
right,
don't know what black
Yeah.
love and Black romance is.
right,
Like you felt the need to clarify because you knew what it was.
right,
Heather says this all the time too, and I kind of agree with it. It's like it's the patterns. If somebody does something one time and you're like, this has never happened before, I'm usually assuming what is that? What is that bubble?
I don't know. I was actually trying to figure out if that was me, but I don't think it was.
But if it happens one time, I'm assuming it was mistake. You didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. And
Right.
so I try to give far more grace. But like you said, Vina, if this person is doing this all the time and giving large explanations for why they're doing it, I'm like,
Right.
you know that you're doing something wrong.
Mhm.
You're just trying to justify it to everyone else and make it good in your mind to
Yeah.
get away with whatever it is that you want to get away with.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Very different things.
And the thing is, I think all anybody is asking for anybody to do is you point out that it's wrong and you say, or you take a minute, you verify that it is wrong, you figure out why it's wrong, you talk to them or you Google it or what have you. And then you're like, hey, I was wrong. I won't do that again. And that's all anybody needs. You don't even have to do a whole spiel about how you didn't know you were innocent culturally, whatever. Just I didn't know and I won't do it again.
Mhm.
Yeah, plus there's certain conversations that come up all the time in the book community. I'm like, at this point, you've seen this before if you've been in the online book community in the past year. So I'm like, not giving you grace to say audiobooks aren't real reading. You knew what you were doing when you said that.
Right.
And that's something that comes up like every month.
Yeah.
Constantly. Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm
don't
far
like
more
people
likely.
can't tell me they didn't see the conversations like we've already had
Yeah.
on that.
I'm far more likely to give grace for silly, like not silly things, but like small things where it's like, I didn't know that this author said something. That it's gonna happen. Like we can't know everything that every author says on the internet everywhere. And
Mhm.
so that kind of stuff, yeah, I'm gonna give you grace on you didn't know.
Yeah.
But those conversations that's like, we do this all the time. Like you've
And
been
that's
here for more than a
wildly
second.
different from
Yeah.
I don't care that this author did this.
Yes,
Mhm.
definitely. Yeah.
I don't care. They write good books. All right, everybody pause. It's Jesse's turn.
Y'all are so funny. The only thing that I think that we can add to the conversation is that when we're having these discussions, it's very important to realize that there is a distinction between ignorance and willful decision making. So let's take the G word, Heather. That is a situation where, oh, this is a mistake created from ignorance to a history, a matter, an issue. Then educate. The person self-educates, whatever. But when people say things like Black authors' books don't sell, that's not ignorance. Okay, it's not that they didn't know Black author books were selling. It was that in the face of all the successful Black authors and all the things, like all of the exposure, they still chose to make that statement, or like Black authors don't write as well as white, like that at that point. So those, in terms of giving grace, those people are never going to get grace from yours truly. However, the way it looks different to each of us, what us not giving grace looks like. The assumption is that
Mhm.
if Jesse's not giving you grace, it means Jesse's online reading you for filth. No, because I don't give a fuck about you. I might make a video about you though, and not even like mention your name. We'll talk about the greater issue at hand, because then it's like a way to have dialogue that leaves a homegirl who doesn't know how to behave completely out of the conversation. So we think that one thing that can frustrate us in the community is when we are holding and coddling these white people who have made mistakes, and we're like, they're uneducated. But in this specific instance, it's very clear that they know the facts. They just chose to ignore them so that they don't have to do any of that self-work. And it gets messy. And then it's up to the person, like an individual. There are days, like Bree said, where we can give more grace than other. It depends on where we're at emotionally. Did we have
Mhm.
a panic attack that morning? Did we, like the other day, a group of young men yelled the N-word at us as I was just walking. It was so weird. Like, it was just
Mhm.
funny at the time because we were like, what did we do? Like, but on that day, you're not getting no goddamn grace. Okay.
Mhm.
Like, we've already done our time.
Right.
Another day, and so I think that marginalized people also need to be given the grace when they
Right.
don't have it, because the world is asking us to give
Mhm.
everybody else grace every fucking day. And so we are very tired of seeing the marginalized be punished for those days that they don't have grace, especially if the
Mhm.
person is making a mistake, not out of ignorance, but they're just hateful.
Right.
And
And
it's
I think even, like, what you're saying about Black authors don't sell or whatever, even if you say that, that's like a, litmus test of where you're at. If you didn't have the level of, bias at the very least,
Mhm.
to think that that could be true, that that could be the you know, then you wouldn't have said it in the first place. So that's just an indicator of where you're at, and where you're at is not good. Where you're at needs to be met with, "No, you can't stay there." That's not that's not a good, you know, place on the spectrum to be. So you need to be met
Mhm.
with, people pointing out aggressively, so maybe even, that that's absolutely not true. And then it's up to you, okay, do I want to stay here? Do I want to go even farther? Do I want to go to people who are like, "Oh, it's okay. How dare they be mean to you about that?" Or do you want to not do this again, to not, cause harm again?
Mhm.
Uh, I think that, for most of us, or all of us even, if we're going to make progress, then we have to be aware that at some point we've contributed to it in some way or another, because our entire, society, government, culture, everything has a lot of prejudice baked right into it from, the foundation up. None of us are able to, come out of it completely unscathed, which means you have to do work to not be, wrong about a lot of these issues. And, um, sometimes I think that the point where you need to realize, "Oh, I need to do work about that," has to be a very uncomfortable place where people are pointing out that you are not okay where you're at.
Yeah, like I think Black History Month and Women's History Month are the 2 months that kind of bring out a lot of ignorant statements. And
Mhm.
I'm like kind of over giving certain people grace because I'm like, you should know better. Like when people make comments about, like, just as he said, Black books not selling, or it feeling like work to have to read a Black book. And
Yeah.
especially if it's coming from like my own people, and I'm like, okay, you should know better. And I won't like go at them like directly if like I don't know them. Like I'll probably just do a video, not even like screenshot or post their like anything that references their video, just like in general talking about the topic so people can understand why it's wrong.
Right. And
And I
I
think that's where people start getting this like, well, now I'm being called out, because then other people are starting to kind of step up and being like, okay, clearly there are exhausted people out in the world that are seeing this. I'm going to say something. And then that's when people get like extra defensive, because then now they feel like, well, somebody else is coming for me that it doesn't directly affect them. So now they're being a bully. And it's like, well, no,
Mhm.
like other people are having to do this work all the time. They don't have the emotional capacity anymore to say it one
Right.
more time to you. So now other people are stepping up and doing it. We're not being a bully.
Mhm.
That's part of this process here to undo, like Heather said, that ingrained, like it's built into our marrow at this point. Like it's a lot of undoing and calling out and fixing and lots of steps and mistakes. And I think that's another thing is like they think like, well, you're being a justice warrior, whatever phrase that is being used. And it's like we all make mistakes all the time. Every single one of us. Like all of us are going to mess up and post the wrong thing or read the wrong book or whatever. Like
Mhm.
it happens. And it's whether or not you undo it, like Heather said, or just kind of find those people, that echo chamber of, oh no, 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 it's okay. You
Yeah.
don't have to worry about it. We all knew what you meant. And I think that's kind of
Yeah.
where the whole bullying thing comes in.
Mhm. Some
And
people have a fundamental misunderstanding of the word bully. and it's really
Yeah.
interesting. And a lot of them live on Bookstagram.
Yeah.
And Book Talk. I'm not on Book Talk, but people
for
send me
sure.
stuff like all the time. Like people will message me stuff in there, and I'm just like, why are you trying to ruin my day by sending me this? Because there's a lot of echo chambers on there.
Mhm.
Like
Yes.
I know last month it was with the Sun and the Void. People were sending me these Bookstagram videos because they knew I read the book. Like I was one of the only people they knew who read the book from start to finish and would be able to comment on it, because some girls had not even read the whole thing. They DNF'd the book, like not even halfway through. And when they were saying that there was content that was in it that was problematic and just like trying to get this book like canceled and this author canceled. And people were just jumping on the bandwagon. So it was getting video after video of incorrect information being spread, including like lying and saying that the book was originally written in Spanish and then translated. It was not.
Yeah. I want to get back to that point of like people jumping on and not correctly, like they don't have the facts. But I wanted to go through some of the comments before we get like too far into it.
Look at Jesse actually drinking water.
That's not how you do
He's proud of that.
that.
Dehydrated.
While I deal with technological difficulties because I am not overly skilled.
Not technological difficulties.
Listen,
Heather.
my life is full of technological difficulties, and most of them are my own making. I'm not very good at fixing anything I accidentally do. Okay, here we go. Ava said, I've also seen apologies from creators who were called in and called out that centered themselves, very much so, were super tearful and then turned it on the people who criticized them for being mean.
White girl tears are real.
Yeah.
That happened to me.
I mean, if you're going to apologize, then you're not going to talk about how you were crying all day and you're so hurt by this. You're just going to say, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that and I won't do it again.
White women love crying on camera, though.
I think this, yeah, I have a couple people in mind, but I think that some people really do kind of make their platform not being thoughtful about it and not being right about it a lot of times. Okay, well, apparently I can't do that. Never mind. Hold on.
Well, yeah, like I've
Hold
seen
on.
you, Heather, talk
But
about
like
romance.
they call out a lot of things, and I think, and you all tell me what you think about this. I think if I'm going to call someone out, I usually am not going to do it in their comment section. A lot of times, either you have their fan base, their ride or dies, they can do no wrong, full of the comment section, and or you already have quite a few people pointing out that there's a problem here, right? So for me, if I'm going to say that, like, the one that comes to mind most recently is Kate Stewart is a racist author that had a whole blow up thing about her racism against, well, her Mexican character specifically had a lot of very questionable things in the writing.
Was she the one whose friend came on to defend her, saying that she dated a Mexican guy, so therefore
Yes, that one.
That is it.
Well, then a couple of romance booktubers were doing a whole read along for her books, and I was like,
I think it was
yeah.
that one group
Yes.
that always does the reads like for their book club after there's a controversy to prove people
things
wrong.
like that.
Oh,
Let's just
is
say
that the one who wears sheets in their spare time?
the choice was not surprising. I don't think anybody was surprised, but I was like, hey,
Why'd you leave? Come back.
That's a choice. Like,
Yeah.
it's a thing that we have already had this whole discussion, and now you're not only reading and recommending their books, which quite frankly, there's too many people for me to bother to call out each individual.
I don't know their names, to be honest. Like I've seen them, and then I'm at the point where I said, "Don't send me their stuff anymore," because I don't actually watch these people.
Multiple people either messaged or posted about it, and it's still the whole thing happened. Anyways,
Right.
So clearly this was the case of, you know what you're
I
doing.
know for a fact that someone sent them my story, and then the creators came to my story and liked it. They hearted it, so I would see that they were there. And I was like, all right,
Thank you for the engagement.
guess you got me.
Yeah.
But I don't know how we got on that. But anyways, okay, yeah, so I
That
don't like
must have
doing the
happened
comment
in the
section,
romance
and I
community.
usually honestly don't do it by name either. I definitely don't think that you should never call out creators by name. I think there's plenty of times when that is appropriate. But usually I'll just be like, "Hey, not everybody agrees with this. I just want to go on record that I think it's messed up that you're doing this," right? How do you all feel? Do you um leave negative comments if someone is doing something? Do you only do it if you have enough of a relationship with them to DM them? Do you just make vague posts? What do you think? What do you do specifically, and or what do you like to see in the community? What do you think is an appropriate response, depending
Oh,
on the I can't think of the word, but the offense?
it depends, because I've definitely left comments in people's comments section, just like, but it's just been like, hey, I could see your point, but, and then I'll just explain like my counterpoint, or I'll be like, hey, this is incorrect. This is like a conversation we have all the time. And some people get really upset about it because they're like, oh, well, you should call me in. But then when you're in there in your DMs and then just like not wanting to listen at all. So I'm like, well, what's the point of calling you in if you're not responding? And then some people are screenshot happy, where they're going to screenshot the conversation to try and post it to make it look like you're bullying them. So not everybody for me is worth like the call in. And then book Twitter is like a whole other space where like sometimes if I'm in the mood, like, yeah, I'll go ahead and DM somebody, but like a lot of times when I'm seeing stuff, I'll see like people are already commenting on it and pointing out why it's wrong and like quoting it and resharing.
Yeah, if it's one of those things that is talked about all the time, I will just post a comment. Like, we don't need to have a one-on-one conversation. Like, this is something that we do all the time. I will leave a comment or something. If it is somebody that I know, I will DM, and I have, because like I said, you don't know what you don't know, and you can't know it all. There's so many authors and so many platforms and so many places. You can't keep track of it all. And so in those cases, I will send a message. If it's somebody that I don't think is going to take it well, Jesse kind of talked about this earlier about taking that person out completely and making it a broader discussion. That's usually how I will go about it. If I think like this isn't worth a call in, nothing's going to change. This person has historically never listened or whatever. I also will then block that person because I don't need to see your stuff. Like clearly we don't need to be friends.
Sure.
So,
I think our perspective is maybe a little different than others is, in the sense that so like what we think is really cool about like the call in, call out discussion is that each of us has to decide what way feels good for us. Like you might feel comfortable being like, yeah, I'll make that comment and then add a but to soften it and, just like have it be in this way. Or somebody else might be like, no, I'm going to by name and I'm going to post this publicly so that you can't, now you have to look at it, you being the OP. For us, throughout, like, because it took us a long time to figure out how can we express that we have seen something from another person that isn't right, that feels bad in our body, without hurting ourselves by having to educate or expose a vulnerability on our part. And the reason that we do not call out individuals in the community is because it's specifically because of that. It's because that's what is best for us. We are not worried about them at all. But for us, what makes us feel safe enough to have the discussion is if, like we've said earlier, we get to be like, okay, well, this person did this thing, but this is part of a greater issue, and let's talk about why. The only time that you will see us call someone out is if they're a celebrity, because that feels safer for us in our head. Doesn't mean it is, but
Sure. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense, honestly. And I know I personally have been told going back years, like, don't call them out because by name, because their platform is so much bigger than yours. It's not going to go well. Like, just don't engage, because they certainly aren't going to change. Their entire viewership is based on the fact that they, aren't into diversity. They aren't into bringing politics into the book community. Their thousands of viewers are there because they like that. So you pointing out that, hey, you're actually kind of racist isn't going to go well, because not only do they not want to hear it, but their entire viewership very much does not want to hear it. That's why they're there. So I do think that a lot of times it needs to be more, not so much like, well, you don't want to lose viewers or subscribers or things like that, but just what is best for you, in the sense that is this a fight that you are willing to have or is worth doing? Like, is the person that you're talking to going to listen, and or is more general, hey, I'm not gonna have you on my channel if this is what you're promoting, rather than specifically, hey, this one person is racist.
And I think by making it more general as well and having it be a more general discussion, I think sometimes if we call out one person, everyone else watching doesn't necessarily apply that to themselves, even though they might also be kind of subject to the same behavior,
Yeah.
because it's been pointed out to one person. If you kind of discuss it in a more broad sense, Jessie does videos so well doing this that really make everybody kind of pay attention and question things and check in with themselves, because it's for everybody. It is not a call out to one specific person. It is a general discussion of like, here are some things that have been noticed, and you as an individual can take that in, and it's more applicable to a lot of people. So I think there's that benefit as well versus a singular call out, especially if we're doing it publicly. Like you're only one person is taking that. If I see somebody else's name attached, half the time I'm like skipping over. I'm just like, whatever, okay. Like that was for somebody else.
We really liked what Bree had said, where Bree was like, sometimes people need to get called out by name.
Right.
And we completely agree. We just not gonna be the one to do it. You know what I mean? No way, because we get too anxious about it.
Yeah.
But like, I think that people don't realize how like much of an anxious little green bean that we actually are. They're like, oh, Jessie's like always like sharing their opinions, and we're like, yeah, because we in our home in a corner, like I don't like we feel that we do it in a way that feels safe for us. But
I love that y'all used green bean.
we totally, oh my god, like we're just such a baby. But and like that's why we enjoy these discussions, because it's like that's the only way any of this gets fixed, is if we talk about it. And like I'm always down for a back and forth discussion. Like we love actually getting that. And I think that's also part of the reason why the individual call out doesn't really work for us personally, because that individual is not going to listen to what we have to say. That's why we're here. But we can make it a broader discussion and talk to people who are willing to listen or who want to have a back and forth. But Joe Dirt does not care what Jessie has to say,
Mm-hmm. And I will say that I think that having these discussions does matter. I know for a fact that I have learned and moved past the point of discomfort and evolved and understood so many things because booktubers were willing to make a video about it and be like, "Hey,
Yeah.
you all are complicit. You all shouldn't be doing this. You all don't care, whatever it is." And sitting with the discomfort of what they were saying, knowing that some of it applied to me or knowing that, um, you know, what whatever it was, that I wasn't where they were on it, and that I thought that they should be, and it was clear, from their video, it was clear that, okay, I, as an individual, am not where I should be on this, and that's understandable because for one thing, for me, I know I know that I'm on a journey because I know that I was raised in a ridiculously conservative household. So I know that I'm starting at square one, maybe even behind square one, because I'm so far the other direction and moving. And I understand that that doesn't happen overnight. I think that the desire for that can happen overnight, but again, like you don't realize what you need to unlearn or whatever until you are confronted with it. But so much of that has been people in the book community, whether it's about a bookish issue or not, being willing to make videos about it and me just watching it and them and being able to think about it and be like, okay, well, I have new information and I'm going to change my mind about this. So it is really helpful. And
That made
I
us
think
miss
that
out. Did.
it can be discouraging when it's like, okay, well, we have these same conversations all the time, but there's always a new person
Yeah.
watching. They haven't heard you say it before.
Yeah.
It
And I
also
totally
depends on the
agree.
environment, I think, too. Like in my case, where I had called out somebody for, getting the definition of Black romance wrong, they told me you should go make a video about it to educate, and I'm like, I did make a video already.
The video
'Cause
wasn't
I did.
because I wanted to make the damn video. Okay, so let's get that straight.
But I've seen, like Bree said, some people just don't want to hear stuff. Some people, like, it depends too, because like if it's a discussion that they're having and there's like hundreds of comments and it's like nobody's noticing anything wrong, I'm going to probably say something there like, I disagree because of XYZ. And like if I'm close with the person, we might have a discussion about it. If I'm not, they'll probably just ignore it anyway because they have their followers, telling them, oh, I love what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This too is what else I was going to say is those videos are so beneficial, but I think sometimes people, because Heather, you were saying you're on like behind zero. I think sometimes people see themselves, they're like, well, I'm at a 5. I don't need to know more. I'm fine. And it's like, there's always more. And if you are just sitting there at your, like, well, I don't need to know anymore because I don't see myself as being racist. It's like, okay, well, it doesn't matter if you think so or not. Like, you grew up in this world. I hate to break it to you, but
Right.
so I think it is a comfort thing, is you have to get used to having uncomfortable conversations. And even if it's a one-sided conversation of watching the video, it is still an uncomfortable experience. And I think a lot of times people don't want to be uncomfortable.
Right.
Pretend that it's not there instead.
Yeah. And
sometimes too in the romance community, I'll see people be like, well, everybody's saying this book was problematic, but I'm going to read it anyway. Like, you're not getting grace from me there. Or like, I remember with the Beautiful Disasters book, I don't remember what that author's name is, but I know she's
Jamie
a
Maguire.
well-documented supremacist. Like, people,
the most blatant case of screenshots of racism from an author I've ever seen.
You can get that one on Google. You don't even have to dig deep. It's like the top hit.
Yeah, I'm like, I saw people who were seeing people like people call it out, And when the movie trailer had dropped, and they're like, "Oh, it's just book Twitter having drama as usual," and I had to correct somebody, like, because we were talking about it on a live discussion. I'm like, "No, it actually wasn't just random book Twitter drama. Like, this person is a documented supremacist."
Right.
Yeah.
What's wrong with it? Like, just out of curiosity.
It's not the book.
Oh,
It's
the book is
the
kind of
author is a
problematic.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
She
the
has posted.
author
It
there's a lot of
glorifies stuff.
screenshots.
Well, first of all, if she would allow this cover to go for
It
her
was like
books, I mean,
2020. She was sharing awful stuff. Like, it was bad.
Yeah.
It was
She
real
was
bad.
very all lives matter. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And she
And
was
I had
also
watched somebody
violently against
talk about the
BLM.
movie too, like of somebody I follow who does a lot of bad bad movie reviews, and even in the comment section of that, people had to tell them, they're like, just so you know, this author is a supremacist,
Right.
because people are going to go watch it based off of the funny comments that this creator is making about how bad the movie was.
Right.
sure. But and that's one thing that we wish more folk would remember when they're trying to encourage people not to speak up. Like, it's not our responsibility if that person goes to search out of curiosity.
Yeah.
But we're like, that doesn't mean we're going to be silent and say nothing. Even if it does, hey, maybe lead to more people knowing that person, you know?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that movie came out. Like I said, I saw the review of it. I heard it was not a great one, but still.
This is such a good question.
I will say, and Brie, I know that you know this. I will say I have known this so much that if it is a bad take from someone with a marginalized identity, a lot of times the community that shares that marginalized identity will call them out with a quickness. Like, they are on it. Like, absolutely not. You will not, use this or use your identity as justification for this. I share your identity, and I am more than willing to point out that this is not okay. Which I think kind of pushes back against the idea of I think a racist stereotype, right? A thing that a lot of people will say, and they said it, the perfect example is BLM. Well, you all are only protesting because it was a Black person. There are more white people killed by the police, yada yada. You know what it is. And like, that is just not the experience. If a Black person is wrong, Black people will say you're wrong. If a queer person is wrong, queer people will say absolutely not. I have just noticed that a lot of times it doesn't have to be white people who are calling you out, because your own community will do it.
I also think
it takes pointing out too. Like, I remember, Heather, you had pointed out that, I can't remember the name of it, but that reading challenge thing that people started doing after Steamy Lit. Like, you were the first person put on my radar. You're like, this is not going to change anything. Like, we've been down this path before, and you just said it like that. And then I started seeing more people talk about it. And then finally, like the next week, then everybody started having a real discussion as people started reading diverse books and low rating them just because of that challenge.
Right. Yeah.
And there were questionable people behind that too. So that's when I spoke up a little more, and I'm like, well, based off of the past of some of these people,
right,
I'd never trusted their challenge to begin with.
That was one where it was like, read 30 or 23. I think it was 23 for 23, that type of thing. It was read 23 books by BIPOC people by the end of the year. I was like, either you're already doing that, or 23 is a lot to start with in the next 4 months. Like, you don't have 23 for the year, but you're going to have 23 for the next 4 months. That's a big jump, but okay.
And I think it also, it just depends on what the thing is, because a lot of times there's a lot more nuance versus a white woman just saying something off the cuff. You know what I mean? Like, I think for those cases, I'm way more likely to just be like, this was dumb. When it starts getting to those more nuanced situations, I think it gets a little bit trickier, because I'm more likely to either message and be like, hey, here's kind of what's going on, or letting the and this sound sometimes I go back and forth, like, does the person that it's hurting need to be the one to say it, and is it my place sort of deal? And that it is always a tricky avenue of, is it my place to speak up, or is it, I don't also never want to make the person that's being affected have to be the person to speak up. They've already dealt with all of this. Do they need to be the one to call it out? So it is a tricky situation, but I think if it's something blatant, I will still say something.
Yeah.
The stimulant one was BIPOC people, and I only remember because, and I knew this was going to happen too when they posted it, is that people decided they should only pick up BIPOC. Well, technically, I can't even call it BIPOC romance because one person is BIPOC and the other person is white, and that's a lot of the books they were picking up. So I remember making a comment about that, like, that's also not helping with diversity if you're just picking up these books where the white man is still the main love interest with their own POV in the story. So we're getting like the book is half told from their perspective. It's not like, I don't understand what they were trying to push with that really, but that tends to be how those challenges go based off of past experience of them doing them every year in the romance community. But I remember too, there was like another incident like a few years ago, Plantation Gate. That started because a white reviewer called out a historical novel written by a BIPOC author that where the love interest owned a plantation, and he was daydreaming about her kicking up her feet on the plantation porch when they go visit. And she called it out in like a Medium article, and then a lot of people were like, she shouldn't talk. We need the BIPOC perspective. And then somebody I was in a group at the time was like, well, you wanted the BIPOC review? Here you go. And that lady and I were like, that lady is like, she was Indo-Caribbean, so like they like those were the people that had to step up and call her out. But it like people wouldn't even have known really had that white woman not said something in her review.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a wild
time.
Forgot about that.
And there were a lot of authors agreeing with it, like it being okay to have plantation owner romance. So I had to write off a lot of people because they were really acting up on Twitter at the time, like coming at reviewers and stuff. So like a lot of times I still see some of those people push. So like I might make a comment like, well, I'm not reading this person because this is what they justify.
Yeah. One thing that you can guarantee on Vina is she will bring up anyone who supported Plantation Gate and be like, well, I don't read them because Plantation Gate. She'll bring it up every time. And I love that about you.
Okay, we feel like we're the last persons to have learned this fact. Did y'all know that Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds got married on a plantation?
No.
I did,
and heard that.
I mean, I'm not surprised, but
I was even more shocked that J-Lo got married on a plantation.
I wasn't. I was more surprised by Blake Lively than by J-Lo, to be honest. But also J-Lo's was even more recently.
Yeah. It was after 2020. That just made it so much worse.
Right? At least if you're like, it was the 80s or something, it's like, all right, you know what?
Jesse is losing faith in humanity as we speak. Yeah. And honestly,
yes.
I feel like, okay, again, I'm going to go back to my patterns of behavior here because this is where, I think that it matters. I don't know if you all have ever watched any of my live shows before, but you can go to my channel, you can look at them. And I will say, I try to have more than one BIPOC person in every single one of my lives because I really dislike how not every single one, we're in Blackoween right now, but every single readathon, they'll have one person of color and everybody else is white. Every single live show, they'll have one person of color and everybody else is white. And a lot of times it's their one person of color. It's always the same person because they don't have to. There's there's one friend that they can access to legitimize them so that it's not just all a bunch of white people. No, we have a friend. And then they bring the friend on every single live and every single read along. And that's how they beat the allegations. We've got one. And I don't I get so sick
Allegation.
of it because
Yeah,
I'm just
seeing
like,
that
one,
was not
it's
surprising.
not right. It's not right to put any person of color in a group with white people and be like, you're on your own. I'm an ally, but you're on your own, and I'm bringing you into this space, and it's a safe space, but it's more safe for us because we're good white people. I
And
don't
then
like that, and I don't like how it's like like widespread across BookTube that you can see every read along has one. I don't like it.
and then you get those really uncomfortable situations where they will bring up a topic that is uncomfortable and ask
Yeah.
for their opinion on a live. And it's like
Yeah.
now it's extra uncomfy because nobody wins now. Like if
Right.
if a unpopular opinion is stated now, they've stood out amongst the crowd.
This
But if
must
they
be
agree
why.
with you, then now it's an echo chamber of, okay, look, somebody agreed with me, so I'm fine. I'm an ally. And it's very uncomfortable. And I've seen it multiple times, and it is terrible.
Yeah.
That's why I stay away from heritage read for the most part, unless like I'm a mutual with the creator and it can already fit into my planned TBR for that month, because people tend to act up during those a lot, thinking that they're being noble.
Yeah.
Like, I'm reading this diverse book, and I'm like, you're saying problematic things in your review, or you're justifying things you shouldn't be justifying, or you're speaking on the culture and you know nothing about it. And I'm like, just read some nonfiction.
Yeah.
And Bree's comment about feeling like somebody asking, I've actually seen multiple stories in the last couple of weeks of multiple BIPOC creators having the same experience of people reaching out and trying to invite them onto something and then dropping them afterwards.
Yeah. I know. I will just say the romance booktube community and the romance bookstagram community, both the conservative and the diverse marginalized, don't mix. Like, there are very distinct groups. You might know this, that there are lots of romance booktubers that I never reference. I never shout out their channels. You will never see me. I have them all muted. I have them all blocked. I don't even have them blocked, actually. I just have like them muted, hidden, unsubscribed, do not show me this channel, because like the romance community at least is wildly conservative. Wildly. And so I don't do anything with them. I don't do anything with them at all. And you could see the pattern of behavior. Their best of the year list, they're reading 600 books, but 598 of them are by white authors. They don't ever talk about reading diversely. They don't ever talk about anything political. They don't ever talk about any real world issue. They often say, this is a safe space. This is my escape. This is my bookish space. And
some of them aren't white either, and that's a whole other
right.
thing. Like, I've gotten into Romance Landia is very toxic. I had to block a lot of people on Twitter for my sanity. I try not to engage anymore.
What is
but
this?
there are a lot, like you said, they find the one friend who will justify like the books. Or I know with Bree, a lot of people jumped on Black on last year, like to make themselves look like they're reading more diverse than they are. And I saw that, and that I didn't like call it out, but that bothered me.
What's Romance Landia?
It's
Oh, Romancelandia is romance land.
community. It's,
Oh, it's not like a
community of romance readers.
place. Or
No, they act like it's a real place, though.
That's why we were like, oh yeah, we're
Hop
going
into your
to
car.
like
But
how
if
far of
you
a drive is
if
it
you Google,
from?
you'll probably find the
Yeah.
Reddit, which is stay away from their Reddit.
They have a Reddit?
Yes,
Oh,
they
no,
do.
Oh yeah.
Reddit.
But I remember now why I even got on this topic. I know a bunch of bigger romance creators specifically recruited Black booktubers, mostly unsuccessfully, to try and like be their friend and be like, buddy, I know there's a couple in the chat.
I was gonna say,
But I know,
Ashley, are you
I
in
know
the
this
chat?
one girl, she met a really big booktuber, and she was the only Black person in her group that met them, and that booktuber would not stop messaging her and was like trying to be buddy and not doing that with the other friends that they met. And it was like a small booktuber. Like I don't even know if she had 1,000 subscribers at the time. And this other person had a lot. And it was like, yeah, don't 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 fall for that.
There was a comment from somebody. I think it
And
was
Yanae's really
Monet.
right about it. There is like a push to get people to pick up these books, but then they don't understand the culture and the nuance and end up not liking it. And that's why I'm not a huge fan of the Heritage Month, because like if you're promoting watching documentaries and reading nonfiction, that's different because you're actually learning like from like the real people's experience and their words. But picking up fiction is not the best way to learn anything but like the very basics, especially when we know how white publishing is, how they want certain stories in books, how they will make them take out certain things about the culture if like it doesn't align with how they feel.
And then you also get to the cases of the books that they do pick up are either ones that are very popular, and they are very popular because they have been whitewashed, and then complaining that they can't find other ones when people have been making videos everywhere. It's a search. Go to YouTube and type it in. And so I definitely agree that there's that cultural thing of, well, I couldn't relate, so it was 1 star. Which I feel like you get all the time in romance of, I couldn't relate to this romance, when then people will turn around and read alien and monster romances, but they can't relate to a Black
They could relate
love
to the
story.
tiger and the door, though.
Yeah, what was the door story? You read a romance about a girl with a door? But that Black love story, too far.
Oh lordy.
What door? Like
You
there's
didn't
a
hear about
romance
the
book.
door romance?
There is a romance about a
No.
girl in a door.
No, there's not. Like
I hate to break it to you guys.
It was very popular on TikTok recently. Like I think in the last month or so. Because my sister, who's not in the community, it came up on her page and she told me about it. And she's not on BookTube or
But we
BookTok
still
or any
need
of those things.
more concrete detail. It was a door.
A door.
A sentient door.
It
A
was
door.
So
Handle?
did it have a mouth, or it just emotionally?
I didn't read it.
I have no idea.
What
The
is the
girl
book? We must read it. Like,
The girl who I
Find
saw her review of it, she said she had to stop reading it for her mental health.
Oh. There's also balloon animal ones where
Yeah.
they're balloon animal shifters.
Oh,
What?
Robin, you're doing the thing.
what if it popped inside?
No
you?
one tells me what's
But that's
Sorry.
more relatable than BIPOC romance. So like when I see stuff like that and I see those become like TikTok, like will make those blow up, I'm gonna make a comment about it.
Or they want queer identities as a trigger warning.
Yes.
Yes. Yes, that was a whole thing
That
too.
was another big
The
thing.
way
Yeah.
that we be in our corner, and then sometimes people will be like, Jesse, y'all didn't hear about that? No, we don't know anything, and we don't want to know because we
Y'all
hear
are
about
probably better off in all honesty.
door fucking and weird shit.
Yeah.
Which we love.
There's a lot of weirdness.
Read what you love, and all kinks are completely and utterly valid.
All right. I feel like we got off of Mean Girls somewhere, and I'm not sure where it happened.
It was Romance Landia's fault.
I mean,
was.
to be
It
fair, there's a
usually
lot of mean
is.
girls in Romance Landia.
Oh, Lord. I don't know.
Like, don't be a man and try to make any comment about romance whatsoever.
I will say, okay, here's the real Mean Girl content that we wanted, right? How much do you think it is people being cliquey or having high school mentality or being like, well, you don't have enough subscribers, so I'm not going to talk to you, or you surpassed me, so I'm not going to talk to you, or let me do this collab, read along, live, whatever, and then never speak to you again. How much do you think that it is people being like, BookTube is my life and my platform is my life, and this is the most important thing, and I don't care, you know, who I have to step over in order to succeed here?
I'm still trying to figure out how people think this is a career. Like, it's like I'm like, these platforms are not sustainable. They have their ups and downs, but some people are like, I chose this industry. I'm like, what industry though? Because I'm like, first of all, if you came to the book industry to try to make a lot of money, that was the wrong choice. Authors aren't even making a lot of money. But people will click up to try and step above people and get the most sponsorships they can get without any regard. And those are usually the people who don't read diversely because they feel like it won't get them the viewership they want.
Yeah.
Heather and I were talking about this a little bit yesterday as well in some DMs about the echo chamber that a lot of these creators will build, where they will go to multiple different platforms and extend themselves across these multiple different platforms to get to the revenue from all these platforms, but it's the same group of people to hype them up. And so it is just this circular hype up echo chamber of everyone telling each other how awesome they are and what they're doing, and nothing ever has to change and nothing ever has to be uncomfortable because it is the same group of people that have now kind of made this their identity by taking it on in all of these different facets. And rather than you've crossed almost from the reality into persona of being a book reviewer, of being the go-to book person.
Right.
It no longer feels real anymore.
You have bookish platforms, and then you have other bookish platforms to talk about how to be a successful bookish platform, and then you have it here and here and here, but you just have the one audience, and you're trying to get more and more money from this one audience by having your YouTube channel, your Patreon, your podcast, your collabs, your Bookstagram, your TikTok, your Twitter, but you don't have any like other following on like any of these platforms. It's just the exact same people that love you the most and will follow you everywhere. And some people are charging a lot of money to try and teach other people how to successfully market books and leaving out their 50,000 YouTube platform being the reason why they can market books. But
and that's why I'm really confused, because I'm like, some of these people are like, you're not even really technically working in marketing. You're not working for the publisher directly. You're making all your money off of subscribers on Patreon.
Or they are working for the publisher and not disclosing it. They're just another bookish influencer, but actually they work for the publisher.
Or in marketing, a lot of I've seen a lot of PR crossover. And I think it's one thing, like I a lot of people have Patreon, and I've subscribed to a lot of people's Patreon, I think where it starts getting
Yeah.
iffy is, like you said, you have your YouTube where you talk about books and your Patreon to hang out with people and talk about books. And then you make another platform to teach people how to make a video and a Patreon to talk about books. And then you have a podcast to talk about how you do all of these things. And
I
it
don't
gets
follow any of these people that people keep mentioning. Like I blocked all of these people a long time ago. And I don't
Sometimes
understand how they keep going from platform to platform.
I see
I think
everything
TikTok
when
especially
someone
has
else
like
sends it to me.
blown some people up, like where they think anybody mentioning anything about them is like an attack on them.
Yeah.
Like I know
And they-
people got mad recently because we said stop reading these problematic books by white authors that have BIPOC main characters. Even if you're trying to read it to educate people, it's doing the opposite and putting money in their pockets.
Right. Getting them publishing deals.
And we talked about this quite a bit of people not understanding the difference between being attacked or versus just being told that something is incorrect, because no one's saying don't ever read these books. No one said that. No one said you are a terrible human being, don't ever have read that book, go back in time and undo it. Just said don't promote it on your channel. Like maybe instead replace it with this other thing over here.
The bare minimum is all we're
And like
asking for.
that's all that anyone asked. And I think that's where that like mean girl bully mentality of like, I did this one thing and I was being a good person because look what I was promoting. And we asked for one minor tweak and it's now we're all mean.
Oh, like when people were promoting that Tessa Bailey book that kept getting the recovers. I remember like that was everywhere. So I'm like people I saw somebody who is not white who did it too. I'm like, you definitely picked it up from the people who were calling it out.
Yeah.
And they were trying to play like they don't know why people are hating on this book.
Yeah. And a lot of times with that, it's like, well, the book is well written. Well, the characters, like, there's great character development and it's a great romance and stuff. And it's like, okay, but that wasn't the issue in the first place. That wasn't what anybody was saying. Nobody was saying this book is so poorly written. How is it even popular? They were saying you are okay with reading Black characters written by a white author because you want, and not Black characters written by a Black author specifically, because you want your diversity as close to whiteness as you can get. You want an interracial romance. You want white characters written by a Black author, or you want Black characters written by a white author, or you want characters who, other than the tone of their skin, you can't tell what race they are. There's nothing identifying about their behavior or their language or their culture or the side characters to in any way remind you that these aren't white people. And you don't feel comfortable around Black people, or you don't feel comfortable around queer people, or you don't feel comfortable around Asian people. So you want that character, you want to be able to say that you read a book, but you don't want that book to in any way remind you of who you're reading about. And that's why you're okay with that one.
And
that's
that
why
also has
publishing,
happened during Heritage Months too. Like
Yeah.
I've seen people from from those specific communities, because I remember there was one on here. There was like a Black author readathon in the romance community, and it was specifically labeled that so that they could read white books written by Black authors during Black History Month,
right?
and mostly interracial romance. And again, this readathon is during Black History Month.
Yeah,
And then
I got cussed out by that
a couple of
creator
times.
once upon a time.
And I think it comes all the way back to that discomfort thing of nobody wants to feel uncomfortable ever. They have been made to feel like the world should revolve around them because it always has. They've always been the center of comfort. Their life has always been, everything has been tailored to you. And it is uncomfortable having to acknowledge that fact. Like, oh,
Go ahead, Jesse. We are paused.
Jesse is feeling anxious because we struggle with nonlinear conversations. And we feel like throughout that course, we were talking about way more things than the initial question. So now we don't remember. Jesse doesn't know what's going on anymore, just to be perfectly honest. So that's our only thought. Jesse's a little anxious green bean.
Listen,
Put some salad dressing on me.
I'm sure if you gave me a minute, I could find the start.
Jesse's on the peaceful side of the mostly peaceful side of booktuber because
Well, so I mean, here's the thing, and that's a really good point, Vina. A lot of the things that y'all are saying are completely new to us. Like this whole when y'all were talking about the people on multiple platforms and that there are people charging insane amounts of money to we'd never heard of any of that. That was all new. So we were like, at first, Vina, we thought you were saying that like being a full-time booktuber isn't a thing. And we were like, hey, it me, like, so we were like, we're missing something. And then what it sounds like you were saying is like, it's a predatory thing. It's not, we're shaming creators who are in the book community who like,
Right.
yeah, this is our life. And yes, we have monetized it so that we can keep making this. But it's more that there are people in the community who are exploiting others. But that is like literally new because like being just the person that we are, I think we've really created like a bubble where we don't see people acting like that. There was a point, there was a reason we were going off on that. Oh yeah, because like it just doesn't make sense because at the end of the year, we're planning either December or January to launch a series on how to start a Bookstagram and how to get started on a booktube and blah, blah, blah. So it's like, why would you pay for that? Like, that this is not an original idea. Many booktubers have done that. So the fact that there are people, that's just wild. And
Right.
so even that, we don't even have a comment. What, Vina?
No, there's like a lot of like weird little predatory sponsorships too that people are taking and not fully disclosing. Like, no, this is paid.
That was the other thing we were confused about. We were getting that there's some drama with sponsorships too. So they're saying they're not disclosing that it is a sponsorship kind of thing.
They're not disclosing it as a sponsorship, and then some of the companies are kind of questionable. Like they have reviews that are easily able to be found.
Okay, word. That makes sense. I know I can speak for the only thing we can speak to due to our experience is that very recently, especially, we have had many companies reach out and basically try and get us to work for free, especially companies that, I mean, one of these companies is a multi-million-dollar company. But then there's been like a lot of issues with us getting inboxed by really, really small or very sketchy companies like Temu, how do you say it? Like they have reached out to us, multiple reps differently, basically being like, yeah, we'll pay you $50 for a video. Like, you know what I mean? Just something that's like absolutely insane. And we've noticed more of that lately. And we're wondering if this isn't all because or exacerbated by the fact that the book community is the largest that it has ever been. So when we talk about like we cannot say this word, cyclical, is that the word? Conversations. Yes, that has been a thing, obviously, on BookTube forever. But now it's worse because BookTok has effectively ballooned the book industry. And now you have people who started on Bookstagram a year ago making really good money off of the content as they should. But that's because there are now opportunities in the book sphere that did not exist from a financial standpoint when we all were getting started. And so I guess as y'all are saying, it makes sense that now there's also this predation. So That's all we got.
Yeah, people kind of like take advantage of their the parasocial relationships they have with their viewers.
Yeah, definitely. So let's go back to hear this. Let's go back to Bree's question about what qualifies as mean girl energy in the booktube community. Is it just people you don't like? Or is it a specific, pattern of behavior? I think that for me, a lot of it is it's very cliquey behavior. It's very much we aren't going to be part of the broader community, or um, we're not going to have anybody on that might say something a little too controversial, or might make somebody uncomfortable, or might, call somebody out. I think a lot of that goes hand in hand with them being pretty vicious behind closed doors about anybody that does have the audacity to call them out. That's kind of what I think of immediately, but I'd be curious on y'all's thoughts on it.
I think our perspective on mean girl behavior in the book community is that a lot of times that behavior looks like exclusion masquerading as an aesthetic. And it is a very fine line between, and an important line between, I have created my safe space. These are the people that I feel safe with. These are the relationships that I have worked on. And not everybody who's interested in me is like deserves access to me.
Yeah.
But also, and we stand by that firmly, but
Mhm.
also we think that even when there are certain people in the book community, certain groups, for example, that even when they do branch out, there is an inherent kinship there. For example, popular cis booktubers not inviting trans folk into their, and even like they've gone out to kind of search for new people, but like even the people they bring in are still very somehow similar, even if they are marginalized in a different way from them. But when we talk about like mean girl behavior and we talk about the book community and what it looks like, even now that it is more brown in terms of outward facing, what you see when you automatically look, you see more brown faces.
Mhm.
But when it comes to transness, like where's our biggest trans booktuber? We genuinely don't know, maybe Joel, maybe Fictional Fates. But like Joel hit a really high number, we think, even before, you know what I mean? Like coming out.
Yeah.
So, and it's one example, but for us, mean girl behavior looks more like every aesthetic is witchy aesthetic being fetishized, and the creepy aesthetic being fetishized, and like if you look like that, you're more likely to get asked to do things. But what if does this make sense? Like it's not even so much about like color, which it always will be, but it's also like, do you look cool enough? Do you embody the kind of cool that I'm trying to exude? And if you don't, you can't sit with us.
Yeah. I think that makes sense.
I think along that same line is the environment that's created where it's like anybody can come in here, but if it gets to the point where you are making the majority of us feel uncomfortable, then you kind of get booted and pushed your way out, because we're inclusive and we love everybody as long as we all agree on this one safe thing to discuss and we don't push or question anyone. I think to me, that's where it starts crossing into the mean girl behavior, because it's like we're accepting of everyone, but only if everyone thinks and acts and looks exactly how I do. And to me, that's kind of where it starts to cross. It's one thing, like you said, if you create the safe space, that safe bubble, you know, everyone creates that safe space, their community, that group of people that they feel comfortable with. And that is totally different than creating an environment where people don't necessarily feel safe. People don't feel comfortable and welcome into that community, because as soon as something is said, it is downplayed or kind of pushed off or anything like that. And to me, that's where the line is.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with like having your own groups, but a lot of people will get their own groups and then just not talk to people that they talked to before. Or they'll get their own groups and they're like always doing live stuff, and it's just only their own groups. And it's a lot of people who will like claim they're open to this and that, and then sometimes they'll have discussions that they don't have anybody in their group who should be having, like, who is capable of having the discussion or should be having the discussion, but they're not inviting like other people in.
That's a good point. Like, what is the term, like, switch up? When you switch it up on someone, that's what's bringing to mind.
Yeah. And I don't think that anybody is saying that anyone is entitled to be your friend, right? Because the amount of friends and the amount of content creators that you're going to be on good terms with, they're not going to, be one and the same. You're probably going to have far fewer close friends on BookTube than you do people that you're willing to talk to, right? And I don't think that anybody is owed a relationship with you parasocially or otherwise. But I think that sometimes you can really notice it even in like lives or comment sections or things like that, where they'll literally only acknowledge the people that they already and I'm not talking like, there's tons of comments and everything's flying by. I'm talking like there's 12 people here, but you're only willing to talk to one of them. So
oh no. Not one.
I've seen that happen. Like, and like Bree's mentioning too, like I mentioned in a recent video, like there are a lot of people I used to talk to on BookTube who I don't talk to anymore. And it's like, it's natural. You're going to like not like their content anymore, or your taste is going to change. But then there's people like, they try to reach out to you like at first, like especially when people go through those periods of time where they want to showcase smaller creators, then they invite smaller creators to their platform, but it's like a one-off, and then they never like reach out to you again, and they always then seem to include their people over and over again.
Yeah. Let me get to the comments. I know that some people think I'm a mean girl. I know for sure that they do.
Oh,
romance
people.
We've never heard anyone say anything bad about you. But
have
again,
you ever heard anyone say anything about me? That's the real question.
Yes, first of all, and we feel attacked. We were trying to say a good thing, okay? We have.
But and the thing is, I think that people think I'm mean sometimes, and that's okay. It's fine. I think that people think I'm mean sometimes, truly, because I'm like, this is what are you doing? What are you doing? What are we doing here? Why are we here? What are we doing? Does nobody see any of this? And that's fine. Monet said this, which is very accurate. It's about race, but also presentation and aesthetics. BookTube viewers flock to a certain type of bookish it factor. Yeah.
The aesthetics are everything too, because a lot of people, not necessarily that I've seen on BookTube, because I don't follow the popular people here, but I've seen it on Book Twitter and like Bookstagram a lot, where people don't want to mess up their aesthetic feed, so they won't mention anything about like when a tragedy happens, and then they get mad when they're called out for it. Like, why should I mention everything that's going on in with Israel right now? And like, you don't have to constantly mention it all the time. Like, I have retweeted a couple things, but since I'm also like going through grief, I'm not like consistently reposting that stuff, but I see it on my feed all day. So I'm like, no one's like watching you to make sure you absolutely post something every day, but like, it's kind of weird if the world is on fire and you're just never acknowledging it because it'll ruin your aesthetic.
Right.
Especially if you claim to want to read diverse, care about reading diversely.
Yeah. And I was going to say with that as well, not even just not posting about it, but the people who will go out of their way to post about why they're not posting about it or how they're not going to post about it.
Or about
I think that
why
also to me crosses into this kind of like mean girl behavior of, I have created this safe space for me, and I feel comfortable not talking about these things, and I want to pretend like they're not happening so that I can talk about books, and that's it. And to me, that crosses into mean girl behavior and is no longer I created a personal bubble of where I feel safe with people that make me feel seen and understood. This is I want to live in my privilege and not ever be told that I am sitting and living in my privilege. And that is definitely that's not I am dealing with something and I do not have the mental capacity to post about this right now. Yeah. This is I have made a decision to not post about it, and I'm going to tell you why I'm not going to do it.
It's the ever for us, and we think that's what Vina was saying was never ever.
I have somebody I muted who, because they never,
like, you can't ever. Yikes. Yeah, I think, that's our issue. Which may or may not be an unpopular opinion, but we absolutely push back against the idea that whenever there is a massive world tragedy, especially if it's something that a Westerner is learning about that's not happening in the West, we push back greatly against the idea that everyone on social media who has a platform should be saying something, because it's inherently ableist. Like, we know right now, Jesse knows. Jesse is incapable right now of posting and digging more into the genocide, because like Jesse's having issues getting out of bed. You know what I mean? But so it's like, if that's one person, and the compulsory forcing is not only ableist, but it also means that people are making obligatory posts, which may or may not have propaganda inside it. And more importantly, it's not coming from the heart, like whatever, all those things. And I think that at the end of the day, as I have a loved one who always says that there's an epidemic of, or what's the word? There's something of a lack of compassion. Like, the world is suffering from the lack of compassion. And that has to start with having compassion for ourselves, and also understanding that it is a very privileged thing to say that all forms of resistance need to happen on the internet, because the world is not necessarily, donating is a thing. You don't know what someone's doing when they're not, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many different ways to be involved. And so like, that's the way that we have chosen to be involved at this time. And I think what Robin was trying to say is, it gets problematic when you then, like, for example, we didn't post on Instagram, like, we will not be commenting because we donate to our savings. You know what we mean? So I don't know.
Exactly.
Really.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, no one notices if nothing is posted. Like, I don't notice the lack of anything. Like, I just assume that you're off living, whoever you are, you're off living your life like a human being. But when it crosses into that performative of, I am donating money and you shouldn't have messaged me and told me that I think that's where
I think we all agree that there's
really
a wildly sorry, what, Vina?
No, I've seen that a lot, like what Robin was saying, where don't message me because you don't know what I'm doing offline. I'm like, I understand, but at the same time, you have a big, if you're somebody with like a big platform and you're constantly talking about these issues, I think naturally people are going to expect you to mention something, even if it's just sharing a donation link. Like you don't have to like speak on like a topic that you're
Yeah.
not educated about. Sometimes you can just repost some like after, you know, checking to make sure it's accurate, or you can repost somebody else's stuff. But there are people who are like, don't tell me about this because I am donating offline. You don't know what I'm doing. You don't know the work I'm doing, and I don't need to speak about this on my book related page.
And I think for me, it's not even so much of a you don't have the right to do it. Like you, everyone can do whatever they want. Like I don't really care. But centering yourself around the problem is, I think, the bigger deal of being instead of just messaging that person back and being like, look, I donated, I'm dealing with grief or mental health or whatever, and I am not posting things right now. Like that's where we're at. And then to turn onto your platform and center the issue around yourself of, well, here's what I'm going through, is to me where it crosses that line of it's not about you. Like no one cared if you did or didn't share that infographic. They cared about whether or not you are acknowledging this problem or making the problem about you at home in your safe, comfy house.
Like there's been, and I didn't even know this author at all or anything. I had never heard of them, but there was a erotic indie romance author that posted specifically, it's ridiculous for y'all to be asking indie erotic romance authors for their take on Israel and Palestine. And you know, we have our own lives, we are doing things offline, it's ridiculous for you to be asking. And people are like, well, you didn't have to you didn't have to say that. Why is it so ridiculous to appreciate authors who are speaking out right now? Like you can't, for me, I'm not going through my entire following list and being like, did you post? Did you post? Where is your square? Right? That's not all what I'm doing. But there are definitely indie erotic authors who are very vocal about social issues, and even specifically this week, the things that are going on and with the genocide in Palestine. So to be like, well, I'm not posting because, and again, to have a whole big long post about how you don't have the spoons and you know, people shouldn't assume how you feel and stuff. Either you could have posted absolutely nothing and nobody would have noticed, or you could have literally just shared one little thing, especially when they end up sharing it anyways because they're trying to deal with the backlash. You could have shared one little thing and you didn't have to do your 6-page manifesto about how you're just an indie romance author and nobody should care about your take on anything.
Yeah, and to name like a non like white author who was kind of in that situation, it was like a couple of years ago, like with the NSARS, Nigerian readers were like, why is Tomi Adeyemi not posting anything, especially when she says her book is about police brutality? And she didn't speak on it at all, except for making one little comment that didn't make sense. So that kind of turned people off because it's like she was using police brutality to further her platform and like using her identity to further her platform and increase her, like, her money. But then when people just said, can you just share some links? It was like, no. And radio silence.
Yeah. I can see that.
And I try to be really understand, like I said, and Jesse and Vina also said, you have no idea what's going on in someone's life. Like you have no idea what personal things that they are going through. And I always try to, you know, acknowledge that. Like, no, you don't have to post anything. You really don't. But like you said, Heather, if you have the mental capacity to come out and write a 6-story manifesto, you you had the mental capacity. You chose not to, and now you're trying to defend it.
Right. And
Versus
again, like, I don't think anybody has to post at all,
no.
especially not if, um, you have a long history of people, like, knowing where you stand, you know? I don't assume that you suddenly changed your mind on all of your politics and philosophy because
And like
it's
Jesse
been
said,
12
there's
hours. Where
so
is your square?
yeah. And like Jesse said, there's so many other aspects to support. The internet doesn't have to be it.
Mhm.
Like you could post all of the freaking infographics that you see and be a terrible human being for all I know. Like
Yeah.
it's not the end all be all by any means.
And also,
And
again, with propaganda masquerading as support, like the post
Yeah.
that we had shared, um, we intentionally, because we're going through our own thing, we intentionally wanted to make sure that anything we shared, given that our Instagram has 35,000 people on it, that it was like a safe thing for us.
Yeah.
Because if you're obligatorily forcing people with large audiences to post and they're feeling pressured, they're probably going to post the wrong thing. And so, of course, the one thing we posted, someone was like, "Nope, this is not the thing." We were like, "Shit!" So we took it down, obviously. But the point of it is that, like, when you are, let's say, those of us who are Westerners learning about this genocide, we inherently, because we're receiving poor information because of propaganda, we inherently can't know what is and isn't problematic without having a good source, and then we don't know what sources to trust.
Yes.
Mhm.
And so it's like, and none of that is ever an excuse to post something shitty. Like, at the end of the day, Jesse made the wrong choice. Jesse reshared the wrong thing. And so, like, Jesse has to be accountable. And that's just how it goes. That's how it should be. But we do think that it is important to acknowledge that when people are obligated to post, specifically those people with large platforms, um, I don't know what we're trying to say. I'm just saying it, even if sometimes when a person digs through posts to make sure that they're sharing the right thing, which is literally what we did, you'll still share the wrong thing. And it's just important to know that, like, that's a part of allyship, is being fucking careful, as careful as you can fucking be, and still messing up. Because again, you're in America. Like, of course, you know? So we're still struggling to and by struggling, we don't mean, oh God, poor Jesse, but you know what I mean? We are still actively searching out information that is going to be safe for us to share and boost. And we're still figuring that out. Um, but yeah, like we said, there is a lot of issues with the expecting, even if somebody's been very vocal in the past, because yeah, I can be vocal as fuck about issues in the United States because I know all of the politics there, and I know I'm not going to inadvertently say something that is fascist. But when I'm learning about a genocide that has been happening for so many years, and I don't, you know what I mean? Like, we have,
Mhm.
even when our abuelita was dying of COVID in the hospital, we got dragged um, for not knowing about something that happened in the Philippines.
Yeah.
And we even shared, we were like, we're not watching the news. My grandmother's dying of COVID. And then she died the next day, and nobody apologized. Nobody said anything. And like, that is a part of like a permanent trauma that we have now whenever something is happening elsewhere. Is like, oh my God, like, we have to know, we have to post. And then because we're like pressuring ourselves, we're like, fuck, we're going to post the wrong thing. And it's just something that I want people to be aware of. I really want viewers to understand that those of us who do have these huge followings, specifically those of us who are vocal about doing work centering social wellness, we are not gods. Like, we have the same exact things going on in our lives. And being at a certain level doesn't mean that like being outspoken about social wellness doesn't mean that we get more and more close to perfection. Like, in our opinion,
Mhm.
we're just as problematic as we were when we were a kid were just problematic differently, and it's a lifelong thing. And we hate being held to this standard of you have to be perfect as a person in order to talk about social issues, because you will be given even less grace than anybody else in the room because you were supposed to be one of the good ones. You were supposed to be the good Black, And it's just,
Mhm.
I think that sometimes we're too hard on people in our community who frequently speak out when they make a mistake. They're given none of the grace that they've been giving, or that we should give somebody who's given love out to the extent that they can. And for us, that's mean girl behavior.
I like that.
We're glad that makes sense because we didn't know if we were coherent at all.
No, it's the idea of patterns of if you know where a creator stands, holding them to this standard of y'all need to talk about this all the time, be on top of it, and like giving the all the time is it's unachievable. You can't ever be that person. And holding the people that are obviously doing the work to the same standard as someone who's like never even talked about this and being like, why aren't you talking about it? It's like, well, they've never talked about it. Like, I'm out here doing all the work right now. I've been doing the work. Why am I being the one to have to find and dig and share just the right thing? And then if it's not the right thing, be the one that's, like you said, for that.
Yeah. I think this is why you cannot specifically be like, why hasn't Vina posted? Why hasn't Jesse posted? Why? You can be like, hey, as a community, we should be sharing. Hey, as a community, we should be aware. And again, you can call people out when they have an atrocious take or they are very much posting propaganda or they're, but you cannot be like, why have you not posted yet? Specifically you as an individual. And you need to give me enough of a reason that I, who am not living your life, that I feel like it's justified, that it's okay for you to be offline right now. I think that that's where, you're crossing a line. And
you have to put your trauma out there.
Yeah. And as Jesse was saying too, and some people, their platform blows up overnight, but why is it that there is no grace given once you hit a certain number of eyes on you? Because it's a thing across the board, right? Once you have so many viewers or you have such a big platform, you're supposed to use that platform for good, but you also need to do it instantly, and you also need to not make a mistake. And also, yes, you just grew this platform talking about your little books, but now you need to use it for this cause or this cause. And the thing is, there's so much there's so much all of the time, and a lot of it is connected to it, and a lot of it, there are great sources for you to kind of form your opinion on, but a lot of it is going to be brand new information to people who aren't living it. And and we're seeing it with celebrities right now. Maybe you shouldn't be sharing your opinion to 24 million people when you have no idea what's going on.
Like the people in the book community who are talking about Hunger Games and comparing what's going on to Hunger Games and other YA dystopia that was popular in the 2010s. Like, maybe you should keep your opinion to yourself.
Right. Yes, Jesse does have very, very good videos and things that I haven't heard anybody talk about, even though it's the same book.
Okay, can we say an opposite thing about Bree's comment? And by opposite, we don't mean like we disagree with you. We're just saying we want like y'all's opinion on this because we have the absolute opposite experience. We have this weird thing where we'll reach out to someone and like they won't respond. And we like even as we're at like a large point. You know what we mean? Like we find it really difficult to make more booktube friends. Like Heather and myself were talking about this on the DM. Do you remember when we were like, nobody asked us to do live shows? Like, we're so excited. Like, Heather literally is like the only person who asked us to do things. And so we're just wondering, like, are people scared of us? Like, what did we do? Like, is there like a flag we can wave? But again, like, we all have so many different experiences on BookTube because, again, of the flood. Like, the community now, these people are so different than who we started with.
Yeah.
And I feel like y'all have crossed almost that threshold of where now people might be scared to message. Like y'all are what,
You're a
35,000?
big creator.
Yeah. So I almost wonder if it's like that weird point of when someone has 1,000 followers, you're like, whatever, I can message them. What are they gonna do? And then there's a threshold. I know everyone's scared.
Yeah.
That or
I
maybe
agree
we
with
stop.
Ashley said too about the book community being selective about what activism looks like.
Mm.
I'm so
And making an
sorry.
adult as friends is in fact very rough.
How does this relate, do y'all think, to mean girlsness? Like, how can we intersect this very important statement that Ashley's making? Just out of curiosity.
I think that some of it is making sure that you are following enough people with enough different perspectives that you are even going to hear about it in the first place. And secondly, that you're going to have more than one point of view of it, or more than one source that you're getting your information from. Because I know there have been so many times where I have gone on Twitter specifically, and I'm scrolling and I'm seeing conflicting things being posted, and I don't even know what's happening yet. But I'm seeing so many different, complete opposite takes on it, and it's like, what is even happening? And again, this is one of those things where I have so many people that I follow that I generally trust their take. I generally trust their, where they're coming from on it, that I start to piece together my opinion and my, understanding of what's happening based on all these people that have a long history on my feed of being right. Or knowing what they're talking about, or not just talking out of their ass, right? They don't just post to post. If they don't know, they're not going to post anything.
And I think going back to that selective activism, the choosing of the things you're going to stand behind that centers yourself. Like the AI art, so many people stood up for AI art, even though it's an issue. I get it, but like, of all the issues, of all the issues in the world, and so I think, to circle back to the mean girl ideas, is it something that is encompassing me? Is it something that I am a part of? Am I still centered in this discussion? Because then I will talk about it. If it's not centered around me, this is a safe space for me. I'm protecting my peace.
Yeah, I've definitely seen that with AI.
Some of the creators too in this community will like if they feel like they were called out, they'll like sub people in videos and stuff, like, and just play the victim. I've seen that quite a few times, like on the romance end, a lot more so.
Yeah.
And I agree. There's that fear of getting canceled. So it's like, if everyone in my group is not talking about this, I'm not going to talk about it, because I don't want to be canceled. I don't want to say the wrong thing. And again, it's that those I statements of, I have always been told that everything has always been kind of centered around me. I've always been able to see myself in everything. I've always been able to find my place and my people, and I don't ever want to risk breaking out of that. And so I'm only going to touch on things that make me feel comfortable.
That and also this comment. Sorry, we were like what you said and this.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Because you don't know what you don't know. Like you can't comment on things if you have no idea. And that's just as dangerous as.
Ashley's right though, because she's mentioned before about like cancel culture being huge in the book community. But the thing is, who has actually gotten canceled? Because like even in a group chat I was on today, they're like, everybody's afraid of cancel culture, but the only one who's really gotten canceled is like Chrisette Michelle.
Yeah.
Who?
She's an R&B singer who got canceled for singing at Trump's inauguration. Like Black people canceled her after that.
Oh, it's a singer. Okay, we thought you were referencing a person in the book community.
No,
but
but
yeah, we
there's
also revealed we don't listen to modern music.
Oh my god!
Nobody like in the book community really gets canceled. They go, even authors, they go away for a little bit and
from the
return.
past.
But isn't Rachel Marie? I thought she came back.
The way second we said that, we instantly saw Rachel Marie and we were like, "Don't say it, Jesse."
I was thinking about this literally today, and I don't know what it was. I know it was something with Jesse. I was rewatching y'all's video.
Oh, it was
like, because.
I know she like posted like the whole. I know the whole thing because I just joined the book community. I never heard of this person before. I never heard of y'all before. That was like the first. I was like, "What is happening?" And then I know Riley Marie is a romance booktuber / horror, and she was like, "Hey guys, I'm Riley, not Rachel Marie. It's not me. We just have similar names."
I had just started watching BookTube when that happened, and I was like, what is happening?
As soon as we saw it, because we were one of those people that had chosen to forgive the missteps that Rachel had made and keep being her friend, we were like, we know you're trying, so we're still comfortable. And then we remember we opened Twitter and we saw what she had posted and we said, fuck, that's it for you. And then we were like, we tried to help you. So what happened, for those of you who weren't there, Rachel had been called out a few times for some anti-Black and ableist behavior that she was like, this is rooted out of ignorance and not hate, and people were just losing empathy for these mistakes. And then George Floyd was murdered, and we held a candlelit vigil in our home and invited people to also hold their own vigils. And she screenshot the live vigil. We hate English. Vigil. Yes. You know, when you start saying a word so much, it loses meaning. She screenshot the vigil and posted on Twitter, "Look at this beautiful Black human." And that was the first thing we saw when we opened it right after the vigil. And we were like, damn, I really enjoyed being your friend. And then she was gone. And yes, that is the only person we can think of who literally had to leave BookTube.
Yeah.
She was gone fast too. Disappears for quietly now and then comes back in a month. Because you know how many authors I've seen get called out for wild stuff on Twitter, and then they just kind of quietly went away. Like Rin Chapeko, for example, constantly posted crazy stuff, like racist stuff, until Black Twitter ran them off of Twitter, and they haven't been back to Twitter. But it's like the book community forgot what happened. Even like people who were there and commenting on it, and then like if you mention to them, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that," and then continue reading their books like it's nothing. Mm-hmm. And continue like posting their books. Like, okay, so that's like, and I've called out a couple of Black creators for that, because I'm like, that's not a problem to you that they were calling people Uncle Tom and threatening to write a racist book about us, and you're platforming them.
Yeah. And I think it comes back to the idea of, as the community gets bigger, people don't know. They weren't there for it. And so all of a sudden you get these authors who are, or people, creators, whoever, sneak back in and okay, there's a whole new audience now. Now the book community is, you know, age is huge compared to what it was before, even a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
And you have people that have no idea. And you, unless someone points it out, it's like I can capitalize on all these people that don't
Yeah.
know.
I think a big part of it is that when we do have some huge social thing going on, regardless of what it is, there's something that everybody's talking about, right? We in the book community and humans in general, but we in the book community, we like to find a scapegoat within our community, not someone who, has been racist or whatever. It's someone who are kind of, if you bring all of the strings together, they're kind of connected to today's topic. And we can feel like we did something because we canceled this person. Mind you, what they did is 4 years old, but the topic is hot this week. So this is the week that we're going to cancel them for it. Um, I think that the book community likes to do that. They like to find some bookish thing that's kind of connected that we can feel like we did something because we took care of this person who wrote a book inspired or said something bad or whatever. And a lot of times it's the rest of the year, the rest of the times you wouldn't have cared, like not. And again, like, I mean that genuinely, not what they did was a problem and definitely worth like taking them off of your reading list,
That's
no
happening
matter
right
when
now
you
with the
found out
North
about
Wing
it.
lady. Like my friend was messaging me about an author friend was messaging me about that today. Like, and she's like, people have been calling this author out for the stuff, like their pro-military books and stuff.
Yeah.
Why is it just now an issue when people have been telling you for months it's an issue?
Right. Yeah.
Oh, were you gonna say something, Robin?
I don't remember.
Okay, sorry. Sorry, we were like, did we make that up? On that on that vein, we think also that mean girl behavior in the book community looks like the selective canceling of authors. So obviously JKR is canceled, but JKR only became canceled when it was simply too embarrassing for these booktubers to stop supporting her, because having been on this platform for 5 years now, we could, if we wanted to, we never would name all of the big booktubers who were supporting her actively, read all the threads, knew all the things, knew all the transphobia, still decided to keep supporting her because it wasn't to the point where you looked like an outright transphobe for supporting her. The second that society as a whole was like, okay, J.K. Rowling's racist, they then were like, and I'm going to change my channel name, and I'm going to cancel this readathon, and and all of a sudden, and it's the same thing with Donna Tartt. Jessie has been screaming about the fact that Donna Tartt hates Black people for about 3 years now. The secret history is still everywhere. There's still very, very popular booktubers who are like, oh my God, The Goldfinch is my favorite book. Like, we're going to annotate it all over the place, who we know have heard these criticisms. But again, until it becomes embarrassing to support Donna Tartt, these booktubers are going to keep fetishizing her particular brand of dark academia. And this goes back to mean girl behavior because, again, Bookstagram gives more fucks about a creepy aesthetic and an intellectual white girl aesthetic than we do about Black people. And it just drives us absolutely nuts.
Right.
So like, that's honestly some of the biggest mean girl behavior we see in the book community is that we only cancel authors if they are unattractive or if they haven't white authors. Let me clarify.
Right.
We only cancel white authors if they are unattractive, but not if they created something that BookTube as a whole really loves.
Mm-hmm.
Only if they've written something we already don't care about. It was
Mile
really
high.
easy for a lot of booktubers to cancel Brandon Sanderson, and I know that he's uncanceled. But for example, a lot of the booktubers weren't reading his books. They were like,
Yeah.
yeah, he's homophobic. Fuck, same with Orson Scott Card. But the second it was Donna Tartt, everyone was like, she was subversively making commentary on my hamster just had a baby. I gotta go. I'm like, what? Y'all wild.
Yeah.
That's it.
That reminded me of people trying to cancel Sarah J. Maas and everybody making the videos where they were taking the books off their bookshelf. And really, they just put the books in their basement and brought it back out. Like,
No,
when their next release came out.
they said
Yeah.
we are.
It's definitely,
What?
it definitely is the, oh, we're canceling them, we're not supporting them, and then quietly a month later we're right back.
And Ashley kind of touched on this. It's you can't cancel somebody in this community. Like, it's impossible. We are not the whole of the bookish community. There are so many readers that have no idea that booktube exists. And the idea that especially once you get into like the individual genres, the romance booktube community is never going to cancel an author. There are too many romance readers in the world that have no idea that any of us exist. Like, it's just how it is. So the thought of, well, we are canceling this author because they did this thing is it's not a real thing.
Yeah.
Like, it's never gonna happen. That author is still gonna write books and they're still gonna sell millions of books because there's millions of people who have no idea that this conversation ever happened.
Because Soko Jackson pointed that out before, like, and said, stop using me as an example of cancel culture in the book community because I'm still actively writing. Like, I ended up getting more deals after.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can only make the decision for yourself. Acting like we're actually canceling anyone is ridiculous.
Right.
But me saying, hey, I'm not going to use my platform to share this author. I'm not. Does that make any iota of difference? Probably not. Probably not. But at the same time, I can live with myself. I'm not telling hundreds of people how amazing this book is. And it's okay that the author's a little racist. It's okay.
And I think it is important because, Jesse, y'all made a video about the cops and military in romances. And y'all brought up so many things that I had never even thought about. And so I think those types of videos and discussions are still really important because there are people out there who might not have realized that there was nuance there that they didn't know. And so I think even as small as our reach is globally, I still think it is important because the more that people talk about it, the more that people watching it are learning and then sharing that information as it goes. And then the mean girl behavior is the turnaround of the bookstagrammers who are like, Jesse made this video and all I want to do is read my military romance.
Read that shit. I'm gonna make my video though.
People still do that with JKR though. Like, for me, I never read Harry Potter. So I do that all the time. I never read it. I never got into the movies. So like, I don't have any feelings about it at all because I've never read it, but I don't support, or if somebody will come to me and mention it, I'll tell them about it. But then I've had people like in my offline life I know still read and enjoy that book. I'm not going to go like hanging down their door like, you can't read that. It's like, people are going to read what they're going to read.
We think people believe that we, Jesse, care far more than we actually do about what they're reading. Like, we will frequently get people commenting on our, well, I loved The Seven Husbands and I'm going to keep good. I don't care. I don't care. We don't care. We're just having a discussion. We don't care. Like, we had a bunch of people DM us to be like, or comment and be like, well, I'm still gonna say spook. Good. I don't care.
Oh my God.
I don't care.
That whole comment section.
We've never been called the N-word in so many creative ways. You're like, it was just a 15-second history lesson. Why?
Why do you know that this word means go?
There's a cross burning on the yard. I'm like,
I nearly died when like the first comment was like, it just means ghost. And y'all were like, yeah, I know. We said that. The first 3 seconds of the video, we said that.
But in the actual Dutch.
See, I've never read any of these books, so
well, in this instance, we were talking about, we made a reel, which honestly, if we knew it was going to set the whites taste bad, we probably wouldn't have made it. But we made a reel where we were saying, we were talking about the word spooky and the history of it, and how the word spook is a derivative of spooky and is an anti-Black slur. So we were saying, this is what spooky means and how it's used. And if you're going to use it, just know that this is the history. But maybe don't call anybody a spook ever. White people did not like that.
My sister actually was telling me about this the other day. He said it was all over TikTok.
It was! There was like 350,000 people that watched that reel. And we got a comment today on another post that someone was like, weren't you that misgender who said that spooky was a slur? And we were like, why are we being recognized? Like, what?
The best part was the reel opens up with, it is it comes from the Dutch word that means ghost. And then everyone's like, it means ghost.
In Dutch.
Jesse literally said that in the first 4 seconds.
And everyone just ignored the part where we say what you're gonna say. This is just like it,
Right.
It just was weird.
Just no, yeah.
Yeah. And also
like, here's
it's not like it's an opinion. It's something that happened. Like, they're like, it's not a slurp. We're like, and yet all of the Black people who were called spooks feel that it was.
History said otherwise, ma'am.
And one, why on earth are you bothering to be like, I'm going to keep saying it? Like, you're automatically in the wrong if you need to leave that comment. You can keep saying it, but why leave the comment? Why do you need to go out of your way to tell? And then also, actually, I forget what the also was. I had an also, but I don't know.
We had no idea it was all over TikTok. That's funny.
No, my sister literally told me about that either yesterday or the day before. I don't know if she saw your video, but like told me this was a conversation happening on TikTok.
It does bring up that comment made a good point. There is so many words. There are so many words that we use that have very dark histories, and not talking about it is not going to help anything. Yeah, okay, this word that you use all the time, you now know might not be the best word to use. The thesaurus is online. You have it on your phone. Look up some replacement words. It's not.
Or just
that hard.
We just looked. It has 500,000 views. Why is that literally, in terms of views, the most important thing we've said online in the 5 years that we've
Yeah.
Because you're ruining people's spooky season aesthetic.
You're ruining the spooky season.
What else are we going to name our videos?
You know, some people carry that spooky season as their whole personality all year round.
Yeah.
So now you're ruining their whole year for them.
That's it.
Oh my God.
Jesse ruined the internet.
October is a sacred space.
Heather, please.
No, like some people go really hard for it all year round. It's their whole personality. So
yeah. And the weird thing, well, not even the weird thing, it's very par for the course, but Jesse said in the reel, I still say spooky and I'm trying to kind of train ourselves not to, but like it's widespread, but hey, here's the history. At least know.
I'm pretty sure y'all even said you can still say it.
We did. We made sure to, because we didn't want to give the impression that we actually cared. We literally just wanted to share the history. Like, oh, this might be a fun thing. I would want to know. Like, we did not realize it was going to be that deep. But like, again, this goes back to the people who were leaving the hate comments, let's be honest, they were they were not women. But it still does go back to what happens in the book community and outside of it. But what happens in the book community when you ruin something that somebody loves, that is popular, like the spooky seat, like, that was Jesse's sin. Jesse didn't realize that they were about to commit a cardinal sin. We critiqued spooky in October. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it didn't really occur to us because as Vina says, like, this is a lot of people's whole personality, which is dope, but like, this is what happens when you come for what the mean girls actually like. And then all of a sudden there is no more support and there is no like, yes, let's have an open dialogue. Yeah. All of a sudden Jesse's got 100+ DMs and we're getting called the N-word and, and all of them. And we're like,
yeah. And it's the whole thing of, that sucks. I can't believe that has racist origins. This is why we can't have nice things, racism. Instead it has to be, well, no, actually it's okay for me. Why. And because it's okay for me, it can't be that y'all also think it's okay for me. I must prove you're wrong. So what I'm doing is okay. I have to be like, no, it just means ghost. I have to justify it to myself. I can't acknowledge that we live in a racist society where, lots of common phrases, colloquial phrases, all of that have racist origins. It's saturated in your language. It's not like racism will end if you don't celebrate spooky season, but it's simply being aware. It's simply being aware that yes, even this to this day still,
And then the mean girl behavior of turning it around and putting it on your platform and using your echo chamber to make you feel better about what you have said. Yeah. And why it's okay that you said it.
Right. We're just mad Instagram isn't paying for real anymore.
And their comment about talking about how Six of Crows is so problematic. I read that book. I can't tell you what happened in that book because I was so bored. But people get upset with me from time to time because I didn't write a review. I think I like one-starred it on Goodreads. And I've had people message me about why I shouldn't have one-starred it.
That's wild.
We're obsessed.
I'm like, that book took me months to read because I was so bored. I even remember Ashley being like, "You're still reading that book months later?" But people just get upset if you don't love that book.
That idea of can't come for things that people love. Yeah.
I read and loved it before I started BookTube, and I could not tell you. I can't tell you. I remember somebody dying.
Was it me?
I remember they never went on that heist that they were planning for the entire book.
Apparently it was Vina. Vina nearly died.
No. We forgot about this book and how it was everyone's personality when we joined. And there was an ancestor who put their hand on us and said, no, and we never read it.
I was only eager to watch the show, which I because I didn't like the book, I ended up not watching the show. My mom loved the show, binged both seasons of it.
So many people told us that we look like some boy on the show. Jasper. We got all we knew is that
that's so serious.
And all of a sudden, we had posted like a reel of us with our fro. And all of a sudden, there were all these comments like, you look like. And we looked up the person and we were like, it's a relatively light-skinned Black person with an accent.
That's what I was about to say. Like, they must think all light-skinned people look alike, because definitely no.
Like, I've never seen the show, so I have no idea what this person looks like. But in my mind,
y'all keep having a discussion. We're gonna show you. We were like,
it's a stretch. My mom liked the show. Never doesn't even know it's a book series, but likes the show.
Like, should I take out my contacts and then maybe?
Right.
But no, people get really emotional about that.
I can't really tell.
See, I was so bored. I missed that part too.
Yeah, I
remember this or have ever heard anyone talk about it. That's wild.
Oh, I don't think he has an afro. What? Well,
He's just
whatever.
a human. He's just a person.
This is the person.
I think if I took my contacts out, two blurry people.
Like this one. We
Yeah.
just don't see it. Everyone. So now we don't want anything to do with it out of spite.
I guess not. Actually, this kind of brought me to another thing, which we should probably shut it down because we have been going. But this is a thing where people one-star bomb books, and then of course that creates like, you know, a equal negative reaction of, oh, I'm going to support this author because you're one starring their books.
Mhm.
I personally won't star or won't rate a book that I haven't read. Like I don't know. I won't.
Weird.
I also don't retroactively change my ratings. So you will see some high ratings if you choose to go to my Goodreads. You will see some high ratings for books that I absolutely would not recommend at this point in time. I wouldn't. And if I read them now, I'd probably be like, what on earth is going on here? Right. But I'm just not going to go back and change my rating from 5 years ago or delete my video from 3 years ago because there's a book in there that I would no longer recommend. You know, that type of thing. I just figure, well, I know better, so I'm going to do better now. And I'm not going to worry so much about if people want to be like, why did you give this 5 stars? But like, I read it a long time ago. I didn't know at the time and I wouldn't do it now.
Mhm.
But how do you all feel like that is helpful in any way? Do you feel like it's ever justified? And sometimes it can be a little bit satisfying, I won't lie, to just watch that average rating plummet. But
I
you
will
know,
say I have discovered that a book was problematic because of that.
mhm.
That I had on my TBR that I knew nothing about. I saw the cover, someone posted it, whatever, and I put it as want to read. And then all of a sudden you're scrolling through your want to read shelf and something is at like a 1.96 and you're like, what is this? And then you go and you do learn that like, okay, this book is quite problematic. I do think that it does create a mob mentality of people jumping on the bandwagon and they read a comment that's, you know, someone pointed out that this book had something bad in it. And now all of a sudden you have all these people one starring the book that have no idea what they're talking about. And I think that can be detrimental. So I don't like when people haven't read the book. Like don't one star a book because you heard through the grapevine that supposedly that this book has some bad information in it, because I think that that just kind of perpetuates this idea of I read it on the internet, so therefore it must be true. And instead go through those comments of people that have actually read it and have useful information to tell you. But I have discovered to take a book off my TBR because I saw that it had a 1 point something on Goodreads, and that's a red flag.
We personally have a weird relationship with star ratings on Goodreads, specifically because we're one of those peoples that a star rating on Goodreads will not change our interest in a book or not. So it's actually never even occurred to us to look at what's at the bottom of our, you know, whatever. Or maybe it has something to do with the fact that like we have dyscalculia. So just numbers in general, we don't like our brain doesn't work that way, unfortunately. But we've also like never formulated a specific opinion around this idea and sat down to think about, you know, like the ethics of your one starring a book that like, let's say the N word is just all through it and the author is not Black, that kind of thing, where it objectively is just fucked up. We personally think that we wouldn't be upset with a marginalized person, or even a white person trying to be a white ally, feeling the need to go one star that book. We wouldn't judge for that or even like care because that's their decision that they're making. For us though, we think that star ratings almost never impact interest in reading a book that has steam. Star ratings, in our opinion, only ever really impact a book when the book doesn't have a large audience and people who are kind of learning about it, getting exposure to it. That might be the deciding factor. And this is why we go out of our way to go up and write up 5-star reviews for Black indie, small indie, BIPOC, etc. books that we have read and loved. Versus a lot of times we might not even put that we read a book on Goodreads, like we're so bad about it, or we might put a bunch of books on there that we just never bothered to rate, but we will go out of our way to rate for, so I don't know. That's what we think. We don't know if that was like helpful at all. But to answer the question though, I would never do that. I would never just like go 1-star a book because it just wouldn't occur to us. We would make a video about the author. That's how we do.
Yeah, I would never like go 1-star book because I actually just use Goodreads just to track how I feel about my book. So that would kind of mess up my system. But I remember this was a big deal a couple months ago, and the New York Times even did an article about it because of the author of Everything's Fine got like some early reviews 1-star. I mean, the reviews balanced out now, but the reason why it got reviewed is because the love interest in that book is a Trump supporter who is openly racist the entire book, never changes. And the way they were marketing it, it was like, he's a conservative, she's a Democrat. And like, they were kind of like marketing it as like a reach across the aisle of romance when it's not really a romance, but then also, that one. And like with the UK cover too, like they're marketing it as a romance novel and they were pushing it towards romance readers. And it's like, this person is a Trump supporter who hates people.
Is that a black girl?
Yes.
Oh, you brought
a black woman wrote the book. So it got review, like it got 1-star initially, but like the 1-stars have balanced out by the time they wrote that New York Times article. Like there was a reason why people went and did it. And I've watched interviews with her. Her justification doesn't make any sense for me. I've listened to Black people who read it talk about how terrible this book is. But like now people are kind of using it to play she was one of those people who was using it to play the victim. Like, well, it's just the mob mentality of people trying to destroy a good book. And it's Black readers, like I follow online from the US, hate the book. Black readers I follow online from the UK, love that book. Like it's the best thing ever. And I've asked people and nobody's given me a proper explanation of why they think it's so smart, why they think it's so good. If this white man is just consistently racist, like giving his horrible, awful opinions throughout. And this Black girl has no Black people in her life, and it just continues to let him go. And like they're like, oh, well, the idea is that she knows he's bad for her, but she still doesn't. Like she still goes for him anyway.
That's wild.
And it's new.
It's new, yeah.
Oh, y'all. My girl just texted that dinner is ready, so Jesse's gonna make like their father and leave the chat.
Cool.
We'll be right there.
Never miss an opportunity.
We're coming.
Enjoy y'all's dinner.
Hanging out for so long. I know it went really long, but we loved having you. So
we are sad that because we could talk with y'all all night. This was fun. Heather, we were having a really rough day. So thank you for getting us out of our body and just like into our more headspace. And Vina and Robin, it was really beautiful to share space with you.
Enjoy y'all's dinner.
But yeah, Jesse, you'll probably be entertained looking up the stuff about that book.
We're so excited. We are so excited. All right.
So much drama tonight.
So much drama. Goodbye to everybody in the chat. We'll go stuff our face.
Bye.
Yeah, but that's just like like I've seen now, like they're trying to frame it like, well, now it's just book people who are being unfair and the mob mentality. So people are trying to play victim because I'm like, first of all, that book wasn't even written for Black readers. They weren't marketing it towards Black readers. So I don't know why Black readers were getting the blame for that book flopping because it was initially a book they wanted to push as a bestseller.
Yeah.
That one was a disaster.
Yeah. I think that's, again, one of those places where it hurts if you haven't read the book and you're rating it, because then when a book does have initially really low reviews from readers, it's
You
like,
have
well,
the
they're
back,
just out to cancel the author.
and you do get that other swing because you, like you said, that
Yeah,
there are people who
normally
pick it
they
up because
even
it's,
out.
yeah,
Normally, at least if it's a trad pub book, normally the reviews end up evening out and start sitting at
yeah,
like a 3 shortly after it's released once more people pick it up.
yeah.
Yeah.
Because people are going to see that it was rated a 1 star and they're going to be like, well, now I want to read it. And then it swings back the other direction. It doesn't
Yeah.
do anything. It doesn't cancel anything.
And or again, you've got, who knows, millions of people who just see the book in the bookstore. They
Yeah.
they
You have
don't
no
they don't
idea.
know anything about it. And they just
Even
pick it
when it
up
was
because they
trending,
know
I
it.
saw people on my timeline who were like, "Oh, well, now I have to go read for myself to see what's actually in it."
Exactly. Exactly.
I think that this is also a thing where I think that allies can really muddy the water, and that they're jumping into things that they don't know about, and they're so eager to prove that they're good that they're like, well, let's all go and do this. And it's like, okay, but now, like, you can't even get to the reviews of the people who read it and point out all the problems and were like, hey, I'm an own voices reviewer. Like, you can't even find it because allies they won't just repost or they won't just reshare. They have to add their 2 cents as well to prove that they're good enough.
This happened to me when Jean Meltzer released her first Hanukkah romance, where the information got so buried by people that it actually took somebody messaging me and being like, hey, here's like what is going on with that book. Because I had posted about it because I was like, I don't know, like there was just like a bunch of like 1 and 3 star like random reviews, and it was like, I don't, everything was buried. And like it took scrolling to go back and figure out like what was in this book. And it was that kind of that idea of, I'm going to jump on this bandwagon and go post this. And all you did was bury the useful information where people were actually saying, like, here's what is wrong with this.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get people that are picking up that have no idea because they're just seeing this random rating. They're like, this is weird. And I'm going to pick it up anyways. And
or even like you talked about that one book, I don't remember what book it was, with the ace rep.
yeah.
And the character had a one night stand or enjoyed sex or something, and you had a bunch of reviews of people who aren't ace talking about how that's not what
asexuality is. But if you read ace reviews, ace reviewers are like, we are not, we're not one singular thing. We are a whole group of people. It's called a spectrum. Like, do not put us into a box. And that's definitely an ally thing of, and I think that's, if you look at BIPOC books too, like Black love romances, and people are like, well, here's what it should be. It's like, you don't get to say that. Like, it's not, you didn't relate to it because it wasn't about you.
Yeah. Right.
And yeah, I've seen like a lot of stuff too with that Mile High book, and like even people pulling in their one black friend to justify it.
I think we've all seen that one. That one live show got a lot of traction on Book Talk. They were going at it.
Yeah, it did.
It was a time. But yeah, it is. And I think that I don't know. I think a lot of times people are so busy deciding that they themselves are allies that they kind of miss the mark.
That tends to happen well, not as much anymore, but that used to happen a lot on book Twitter. And we talked about it before, Heather. Like you and I had seen a situation with some drama between some authors before, and I was just like, I had messaged you quietly, like, oh, it's between this people and this people. Just don't get involved.
Oh man, to this day, I'm still trying to figure these things.
I don't know what happened, but I was just like, I'm not gonna get involved. And I was like, I saw Heather retweet thing, and I messaged her, and I'm like, don't get involved.
Yeah,
but it comes back to that whole idea.
That was appreciated.
Yeah, of nobody ever wants to feel uncomfortable or wrong, and so they just jump onto whatever feels easiest, and
They're busy, so
rather
they
than
fill the
ever,
silence.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts? Because
This was
2 hours and 40 minutes in, so maybe we
No,
should
thanks
wrap
to the
up.
people who stuck around for so long too.
I know. I can't believe I mean, I'm sure. Nah, I won't say it. I'm sure you're all here in good faith. Yeah, I had lot of fun, a lot of interesting segues. It wasn't all necessarily exactly what I had thought it might end up being, but I really like a lot of the directions that we went off into. So that worked out well. I always really appreciate the chat. I always really appreciate you guys talking to each other. And if I miss your comments, bringing it back up and or just adding to the discussion with your own input and giving us things to talk about. That's why not only do I like doing live shows because I get to interact with the other creators in real time, but the chat really does add so much to it. So I really appreciate you all adding to the discussion and giving your opinion and just making it a better live stream and discussion all around by having more input, basically. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Vina and Robin, and of course Jesse. Everybody's linked in the description if you don't already follow them, and those initial discussion videos that Jesse had posted that had kind of inspired this live are also in the description. So I was on top of things. I did it. But that's it. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.
Bye.